Ever since I started playing the Division 2, I've heard a deluge of players tell me that measured is a meta talent. To me, it felt terrible. To others apparently, it felt like getting a nanobot shot from the booster hive. I tried to put the matter to rest in a previous interesting investigation. But now we've got Fog of War promoting the talent, and we've got new tools to bring to the fight. What will this interesting investigation reveal about the most divisive talent in the game? Let's find out.
Hey agents, it's Dispatch. Welcome to the channel, where we talk about the math, builds, lore, and game design of Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Let's get stuck into it.
Before we bring out the big guns, let's recap my last video on measured. Generally, I said two things might contribute to it feeling good. Number 1, increased stagger from increased rate of fire. 2, increased stacks from striker or clutch or other stacking talents. Both of these are just theoretical and not validated. I have some additional theories since then. Number 1, extra rate of fire gives us recoil interrupt for better handling on some weapons. Number 2, extra rate of fire gives us faster hit markers and feedback from hits, giving us more dopamine hits in a small amount of time. The thing about all of these hypotheses, new and old, is that they're all centered around the first half of the mag. As soon as you hit the second half, all of these things now work against the effectiveness and enjoyment of the talent. It's a really weird and baffling situation. In addition, if we think about the talent's effectiveness as far as TTK or time to kill goes, both sides of the mag work against it. The decreased damage on the first half decreases the head start with the weapon, the damage at 0 on your first shot, what Fog of War calls the first bullet principle, while the second half of the mag increases the wasted damage of the killing blow, what Fog calls the last bullet principle. One other thing I'd like to dispute of Fog's is that the mag takes exactly the same amount of time to empty whether you're running measured or not. By the math, this isn't true, but the difference is absolutely minuscule. In this game, we're talking about very minute differences in damage and time, however, so it is important to point out even tiny changes. If you're attack reloading, you probably won't run into this consideration at all, but it's a difference nonetheless. This talent might actually be good in PvP, but I ain't even gonna speculate on that. I don't PvP, and I never will. Enough theory though, let's get as close as we can to answering this by running the actual TTK through the Blake tool, which I didn't have for my last video. Our first build is an all-red high-end build with 25% expertise. We have perfect glass cannon and a Fenris piece somewhere in there. I've made the critical hit chance and critical hit damage reasonable, but your exact percentages might change based on if you're running coyotes or something else. I have no desire to rerun these simulations with trying to account for coyote ranges, so I didn't put that in the build. Our first build, build 1, is with measured, and our build 2 is with ranger at 15 meters, so it has 6% amplified damage. I could have gotten spicy with some other picks for talents, but ranger is always active, so it's a decent comparison. We're assuming we're using the first half of the mag only, since we haven't coded in specific talents yet. If we run into the second half of the mag, we can note that. We'll run another simulation only using the second half of the mag. As you can see, measured trades blows with ranger on solo heroic. Where it really starts to struggle is when we're getting to the tankier enemies, especially since they take more than one mag in this scenario. Now of course, we know that once we get past 25 bullets, we'll be getting into the second half of the buff, so this will change. With measured, we've got almost exactly the same mag damage as ranger at 15 meters. We'll see how this holds up in the next comparison. Alright, so it seems like, first blush, measured is looking okay. The extra hits on target from the rate of fire increase might give us a leg up, but that's about it. Now let's change it up and go with striker instead of high end. Just for simplicity's sake, I've kept the crit the same. We'll start with 25 striker stacks, assuming we fired about one mag to account for the stacking that will occur with our hits. Hopefully in the future we can add striker to the simulation. Now we can see that the story is still pretty much the same. Let's try Flatline instead of ranger. I dropped a critical hit chance slot on the weapon for the linked laser pointer, so I've dropped a critical hit damage gear mod to replace the lost critical hit chance. So now we've got a net loss of 1 critical hit damage mod, or 12%. We're seeing Flatline secure the win pretty consistently with at least a win in 2 of the 3 categories. And again, we're seeing a definitive lead on tankier enemies. It's important to note that Flatline has a distinct 8% mag damage advantage to measured, when taking into account the back half of the mag as well. So we would expect this trend of measured losing on tankier enemies to continue, even when taking the second half of the mag into consideration. I've tried some other weapons as well. The results are largely the same. Keep in mind, I've mentioned before that some of the slower firing weapons don't benefit from the recoil interrupt, so that is another consideration. Alright, so after many tests, what are the results? Not great for measured. Other than some intangibles, measured has repeatedly lost in these comparisons. These builds have ridiculous weapon damage, including an arguably suboptimal pick of Fenris in the build instead of something like Grupo. And also, not everyone is going to be running a weapon with expertise 25 all of the time. Not to mention, running a double total weapon damage talent like Obliterate and Vigilance would give diminishing returns for the back half of our magazine. So we got a test that is biased towards measured, and it still doesn't measure up. The last consideration is legendary difficulty and group scaling. Both of these will continue to skew the results against measured, as we saw from simply increasing veterancy on our solo heroic simulations. I know Dodd Regenboot has claimed that running no weapon damage on your build makes the negative weapon damage on the front half kind of bottom out, since the weapon damage can't go below 0, but I've tested this and it's not true. The negative weapon damage is included when the weapon type damage is added, that being AR damage, SMG damage, etc. So there's no way to cheat the system and completely nullify the downside from the front half. Alright agents, so that's the verdict on measured. Measured is not good. We looked at it in theory from a DPS perspective and from a simulation perspective of TTK, and in neither scenario does it come out on top. It might feel good to you, so by all means keep playing with it. But if you want your weapon talent to measure up, grab a different talent. I hope you all enjoyed the speedy maps we done did in this one, and if you did, smash that like button, get smashed at the bar, and tell all your drunken mates about it too. Take a bunch of drunk people home, and take advantage of the situation by having them log into their YouTube and subscribe to the channel and like the video too. Then, have them get a dispatch tattoo to remember our time together forever. Make sure they get home safe so they can spread the word, and don't let them get nabbed like our Castle Cinema clowns. Alright agents, that's all I got for this one. Let me know if I finally convinced you to let go of the measure myopia down in the comments. And of course, until next time, this has been Dispatch. Take care out there.